Hey guys, so with this video I'm going to be starting a series called Advanced Second Block or Advanced Second Block Tricks. So this first episode is about influencing everything in second block. So there are five different types of influencing, I'd say. I'll start with showing the first one. So this would be influencing the DR edge to either force it to be oriented or force it to be solved or just be in a better position. So here I just came up with this quick example. So we have this blue white block. So we see this pair and dr is back there. So if we solve this by doing r2u ry prime u prime r prime f, we see the dr is in a pretty good position. All you need to do is u2 r2 to solve it. But but if you solve this in a slightly different way, if you do r wide 2 and bring this to the top and do u r wide prime u prime r prime f, then dr actually pairs up with the center and it's one move away from being solved. Here's another type of way I like to influence dr. So on this red-yellow block, we see dr is here and this pair is like this. So obviously you solve this with u prime r wide prime f prime because it's the most efficient way to do that pair. And paying attention to this dr, that's going to put it to the bottom and it's only one move away from being oriented on the top. But if the dr edge is here and like this, if you insert it the same way, you're gonna have to do an r wide 2, which is one more QTM, and it's worse for finger tricks. So in this case, the way that I would solve these two would be like this. And now it's at the top and oriented, and it's so much better. So here's the last type of case. It's when you have this F prime insert. So as you can see, dr is here and it's misoriented. So in this case, I would pair these with an r wide and then do an f prime because I know that's going to bring this to the top and orient it. But if dr is like this and it's actually solved, then why would I do r wide f prime when I can just do m prime f prime to preserve this orientation and keep it solved? Just one more case before I end this section of the video. When you have the pair in the front like this and dr on top, whenever you put it here, it's going to change the orientation. So here I would not want to do that F like this because it would flip it. So I'd either keep the dr there, there, or there. But if dr was flipped, then obviously I'd want to put it on the front and solve it right there. So this is the second section of the video and the second type of influencing that you can do for second block. And this is influencing the corners while you're inserting dr. So whenever there's a corner stuck to the dr edge, this is the first type of case. Whenever there's a corner stuck to the dr edge, what you want to do is insert it in a way that's going to get it out. Because if you just do an r2, that's at the bottom and that's not good. So in this case specifically, if I just do r-u-r, it's going to keep the corner to the top and make its orientation good so I can solve it with that edge. The other case that you would want to influence corners is if you have them white on top. So here I'd want to do r prime u r prime to flip this to be green because having a white on top for corners isn't really that good. It's only good for like two cases where the edge is oriented or when it's directly opposite and you can pair them with wide moves. But in most cases you'll want to flip them to be not white or yellow on top. One of the major benefits I like with doing corners and making sure they stay in the top is that once you're going to know where the corner is, so after I do this, the corner's going to be here, and while I'm doing that, it gives me time to look for the edges, so I can see this and immediately cancel into pairing them up. So that's the end of the corner influencing while solving dr. The next type of influencing, the third type, is influencing edge orientation while solving your pairs. So this one is pretty difficult. Not difficult, but it's pretty case specific. Sometimes you're going to want to keep edges oriented. Sometimes you're not going to want to orient them. In this case, I'll just show it. We have dr solved and then this pair. So I solve this pair. And then here, this is what I mean by influencing edge orientation. You can either do r prime or you can do r wide prime. So r wide prime would misorient the edge, but r prime would keep it oriented. So sometimes people keep it oriented in all cases because they think it's better, but in this case it's better to misorient it because then it's easier to pair with this corner. Another type of case I see come up pretty often is the one where you want to keep the edge on the bottom. So I'll solve the orange pair first. So I go like this, M prime U2. These are ready to pair. And I notice that if I end with an R wide, it's going to bring this edge back here and be red. And that's good because this corner is also going to be red here. So I wouldn't want to end it with an R because that would be back there and I'd have to do an M2 or an M prime. So I'd end with an R wide and I can just quickly cancel into that. So here's one of the cases I was talking about where you would want to keep the edge oriented. So we have the green-orange corner inserted, and we have this front pair with this here. So when you're solving it, you're going to want to orient this by doing our wide prime. So that sets up this nice pair. So this case, we have this pair, DR inserted, and flipping this edge would orient it and set it up for a good case, but also not flipping it is good as well because you can solve it like that. So in this case, I guess it's personal preference, but usually with this white sticker up, you're going to want to orient this because you know it sets up to the case that you can stack them on the right side. But for this case specifically, it comes down to personal preference, and I think not orienting it avoids one AUF. So I think I'd do that. That's the end of this section, so now I'll move on to influencing corners during insertions. So influencing corners during insertions is actually probably one of the most straightforward ones to get used to. The only thing that you have to know is that when you're inserting one pair, try not to get the other pair, the other corner for the other pair to be white on top. So here we see that if we insert this like that, it's going to leave this white on top. And now for this case, it's not that bad because you can solve these using wide moves, but for most cases, what you're going to want to do is do a U prime. Whenever you see the white sticker or yellow stickers on the back or the front, if it's the front pair, you're going to want to do a U prime and insert this with the U2 move. And for this case, you can actually see that does it pretty well. It sets up this, and then you can solve it like that. And for this example right here, for the front pair, obviously if you do this, it's still a good pair. Oh, whoops, the DR isn't solved there. If you just insert it normally, it's still a good pair. But if you insert it with U2, it's actually going to skip and solve the pair. So once again, if the white or yellow sticker is on front, so the down or up color, the down color can't be the up color. If the down color is on front or back, you're going to want to insert it with a U and then a U2. So this last section is called pair choice. Now I'll actually be making a whole separate video on this because I think it's the most complicated out of all of the influencing techniques, but I'll just show a quick example. So pair choice, what I mean by that is picking one pair to do first over the other can be better in some cases, even if they're both equally easy to solve, because it'll set up the other pair to a really nice case. So for this case right here, I know that if I solve the front pair first, what's going to happen is the orange pair is going to solve in this slot, and then it's going to come up here, and then I can force the edge to go down there. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I go RU, R wide prime like that, it puts these in while putting this this edge on the bottom, and then I can pair it up with the thing, the corner, and then once I insert it, this is going to line up really nicely. So stay tuned for the rest of this series. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it was useful.